1, 2, 3, go. Welcome to November's edition of the Financial Rundown. Maddie's back this month.
Thanks, CJ. I'm excited to be here.
Did you know it was financial literacy this month?
I did, but you know what, CJ? Honestly, I think every month should be financial literacy month because we can always talk about money.
We always are, so it is for us.
Yeah.
What's our first topic today?
Our first topic today is about job hugging and labor hoarding.
And so we did a topic on the podcast probably a couple years ago now, but talking about the Great Resignation was 2021, 2022. And that was where people were quitting, flipping jobs, moving from here to there a lot more often. And we had a chart here that just shows that in the US, the quits peaked in late 2021. So you can see the chart shooting up there. And I think, workers were leaving for better pay, remote work, and maybe trying to find some sanity post-COVID. But the script's kind of flipped more recently now, where companies are labor hoarding. So they're keeping people on, probably a little bit scorned from before when people were leaving, you had to rehire, retrain, and all that stuff. So I think companies are keeping people on board a lot longer and maybe giving them some make work projects just to avoid having to rehire when things get busy again. And from the employee side, there's the job hugging. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So job hugging is really where the employees in the past, they were quitting, they were going to other places for more money, things like that. From the employee side, it's really hanging on to stable jobs out of fear rather than out of feeling a sense of satisfaction or contentment in their current role.
We talked about that in the last one, the unemployment rate going up. So that probably adds that fear level as well. And I think it's good for short-term survival for these companies to keep people on board. But I think it breeds some inefficiencies and employees become lazy because they're just staying in that same job. Maybe some resentment gets built up. So I don't think it's overall a good market for jobs right now from that perspective. And I think that from the employee perspective, what can you do here? Well, you're probably not getting many raises right now. You're probably that back to work, return to the office mandates, those types of things. And so I think it's around continuing the growth and not staying stagnant in that job. So if you're a job hugger, we don't want you to be staying stagnant in that and getting complacent. Continue growing, whether it's taking courses or developing yourself, just so you're ready for when that next opportunity comes along. My buddy Tony Robbins, he always says, if you're not growing, you're dying. Keep that in mind.
I will.
Okay, awesome. When we come back, we have my favorite chart. It's a good one. Back after this. Are you a retirement dreamer in the fog of what ifs? Boss driving you up the wall, making you fantasize about retiring yesterday? Uncertainty whispering, not yet? Enter Philotomo Wealth. Here at Philotomo Wealth, we deliver greater certainty to uncertain situations so you can take bold action toward that secure retirement you've built your life around. No crystal balls or crossed fingers, just crystal clear strategies tailored to your life. Swing by philotomowealth.ca for a free certainty session. Philotomo Wealth, greater certainty and epic action today. Our next topic is a favorite of mine that I like to look at every year and remind clients of that is the price of admission. So when we're talking investing with clients, we're talking about risk and reward and that trade-off all the time. And so if everybody could make money every year and get good returns without taking any risk, those are just impossible to find. So this chart here shows the S&P 500 maximum intra-year drawdown versus the end of year total returns. And so what it says, since 1980, the S&P 500 has an annualized total return of 12%, despite an average intra-year drawdown of minus 14%. So again, no risk, no reward. So looking at that chart, you can really see here that, there's going to be those negative years, and we can see that going back to 1980 here, but there's a lot more positive years. And even despite that the fact that they're positive during the year was that intra-year drawdown means the biggest drop you've had in your portfolio at whatever point during the year. You can see that those average, as they say, minus 14%. Those scary drops happen almost every year, but most years they do bounce back strong.
Yeah. So, what do we do about that, really? And honestly, the truth is we don't really do anything. The chart really shows us that it does come back positive most of the time. And so what's most important here is while we're writing out those intra-year drawdowns is making sure that we stick to the plan, that we stay invested, that we don't make any rash or harsh decisions during those times. We really don't want to be guided by our emotions. We want to be grounded in having a well-diversified plan.
That long-term view as well. And I think that we're at all-time highs right now, which is why we wanted to bring this chart up, because a lot of people are saying, is this a good time to invest? We're probably going to see a pullback. And I think what's important to note here is we never know when that pullback is going to happen. So And pullbacks do happen, and that's why I love that chart, because it shows that pullbacks do happen in a healthy market and in a bull market. So don't panic when it does. Our crystal ball is foggy, so we don't know when that's coming, but don't panic when it does happen. Stick to that long-term plan.
Has the housing bubble burst?
You tell me.
Well, let's take a look at this chart here, CJ.
Would you say it's the only chart that we need to see regarding Canadian housing?
I would say. And also gives us a hint of why owning a home in Canada might feel a bit like a pipe dream. So let's take a look at what we have here. So on this chart, you can see that there's a timeline from 1990 to 2025 featuring 4 key lines that illustrate trends in the Canadian real estate market and related economic indicators.
I'm going to guess that line that goes straight up is Canadian housing prices.
You are 100% accurate, CJ. That red line is the Canadian Housing Price Index, which you can see skyrocketed from a base of 100 in 1990 to 286.8 today, demonstrating explosive growth in home prices. Next up, we have the green line, which is the 5-year government bond yield, which is currently hovering around 2.72 with historical ups and downs over the years. Then we have the blue line, which is the Bank of Canada's policy rate, so their overnight lending rate. It recently dropped to 2.25, which showing fluctuations, but overall a downward trend in recent years. We have the gray line here, which is the core inflation. So the core inflation has been steady at 3.2, serving as a benchmark for price stability. So the key observation here and the real standout point is starting in 2015, how the price of Canadian houses really started to skyrocket, which has led to some people feeling that housing in Canada is no longer affordable.
And that timeline kind of aligns with the interest rates going to zero and that aspect of it too. What do you say to people that say, Maddie, housing prices are going up all over the world. It's not just Canada. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate how people are saying that because we have recency bias for us here in Canada, but I have this fancy chart here, which certainly indicates that that is not the case. What is happening with Canadian housing prices here is not replicated in other countries.
And I think the chart goes into showing that change in home price to income ratio, which was always one of Jerry's favorite things that he would say, that multiple of your income, right? So we're looking at that's what that chart's showing there. So Canada shows the largest increase in the home price to income ratio. It's the average home price divided by the average income. So for example, if you were making $100,000, right now, those multiples are 9 to 10 times. So that means that the average price of a home is $900,000 if your income $100,000. So that multiple, good luck getting a mortgage for that big of an amount, which leads to how are people doing this? And it's usually from friends or family, parents, grandparents, helping with down payments and gifts like that. And on that, qualifying for the mortgage note, we've seen an uptick in mortgage arrears at this point, which is the highest level since September 2020, and a bit of a concern based on some of the other things we've been talking about, like unemployment and that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's tricky because what happened is back in 2020, people locked in at rates that were, below 2%. And now they bought homes at below 2%. And so they were able to afford a lot more, in terms of a mortgage, but now they're going to be renewing into rates that are in some cases like double or almost triple what they had 5 years ago. And that's creating some negative impacts.
And what is that in like a dollar amount about?
Yeah, so it's anywhere between $500 and $1,500 out of their budget that they now need to redirect and put towards their mortgage.
Yeah, like depending on your outstanding balance, that's a big chunk of change every month.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's all of these other sort of ramifications that come from that, right? It's that they have Canadians have fewer dollars to spend, which means that they pull back on their consumer spending, which means that we see a pullback in GDP, which is a recession indicator here in Canada. And it really leaves people pleading for rate reductions to help some relief because a large-scale foreclosure is not in anyone's best interest.
And we see that a lot in the news about trying to get rates down, and you see politicians out there saying rates should come down, and our buddy Tiff talking about some of those things. Check out our newsletter for that. So it's not all doom and gloom. We like to stay positive here, and I think it's more with this housing. You can see in that chart that housing prices have come down, but there is still quite a gap there. So there's potentially certainly room for them to go down further, but I think it's an overdue reset. After years of easy credit and a supply squeeze. And so what do we tell clients to do here? And I think it is the planning side of it, which we keep hammering home. And that planning side of it, you can usually renew your mortgage up to 6 months beforehand. So start looking at that now. Rates might go up in 6 months, who knows? So start looking at your options now by putting that plan in place. Make sure you have an emergency fund available. And I like this one too, is figure out what that number is that your mortgage might be 6 months from now with that increase, and start adjusting your lifestyle to that now by either putting more money towards your mortgage, saving some extra money each month as if you were making that higher mortgage payment, so that you build yourself up that little more of a buffer. I always like that strategy. Having talked about this and housing prices coming down, but still potentially being a bit overvalued, where's your stance on, is it a time to buy?
A good time to buy is when it makes good fiscal, financial, and lifestyle sense for you. So, you really want to be in a position where you're going to plan to stay, especially if you're buying a principal residence, like at least 3 to 5 years minimum, I would say. You want to make sure that you have a good emergency fund. You don't want to use all of your money for your down payment and closing costs. And so it's less about the market conditions and a lot more about whether you are financially and in the right life stage to purchase.
Yeah, I think you stole all my points. You hit the nail on the head there, and it's that principal residence versus a rental. If you're in the rental market and you're trying to buy rent, that's a different conversation. But I think from the perspective of the principal residence, you hit the nail on the head there. Wow, those are some great financial insights. Let's take a break and hear from our sponsor. ETFs, those reliable workhorses of the investing scene, gaining steam as more folks discover their straightforward appeal. And here's the good news. At Philotomo Wealth, our lineup of available ETFs is growing fast, now offering hundreds of options for investors just like you to explore and invest in. Whether you're complementing our actively managed mutual funds or dipping your toes in for the first time, these ETFs bring easy diversification across markets and themes, all while helping trim those overall costs with low fees. No big commitments, just smart, accessible choices to round out your portfolio. Thinking they might be a good match for your setup? Let's review your portfolio and see if adding a few could make sense for you. Swing by philotomowealth.ca for that free checkup. So the budget is coming out tomorrow or today, or we're filming this on November 3rd. So I think some details were coming out today, and we'll get the official one tomorrow, I believe.
On that point, CJ, I saw this funny tweet from Ron Butler.
Ron the Mortgage Guy, at Ron Mortgage Guy. He is he's an interesting character.
I know that you are a fan of his enthusiasm.
Yes, to say the least.
So what our buddy Ron here is predicting is that the government is expected to issue bigger deficits. They are going to increase their spending on defense. We are not likely to see any tax cuts, but we will see some help for those tariff hit industries, and overall that there will be better days ahead.
They always like to say that eventually everything's going to work itself out, so don't worry about the large growing deficit there.
So CJ, why don't you tell me about your thoughts on Ron's predictions?
I think the increase in the deficit and the defense spending was to be expected with all the chaos going on in the world. And I think tax cuts, I don't think anybody was expecting tax cuts. Helping out the tariff industries, I think is a short-term fix. I'm not sure if that's a long-term solution, but I think that's a short-term fix to help them out until hopefully a deal or an agreement is struck there. So overall, it's the line of eventually things will get better and that deficit will go down. I think is a political line. That's what politicians say. So I'll maybe leave it at that for that one.
Yeah. Actually, let's dig a little bit deeper on the debt side of things, because sometimes they frame it as an investment. So talk to me about your opinions on that.
Yeah, I can't remember the number, but I think the rumor was that it was going to be $50 billion in infrastructure spending over the next 5 years, something to that effect. And Ron had an interesting take on that where he equated it to, you have an older driveway that you redo and you make it a nice fancy concrete driveway or something like that, and use your home equity line of credit. So the metaphor there, I think that the point he was making was, if we spend this money on the infrastructure, billions of dollars on infrastructure, you hope the investment doesn't flop, because at the end of the day, we're using debt to finance those infrastructure bills. And so that means that it increases our monthly, as a country, our monthly servicing costs, debt servicing costs. And that number right now is a staggering, I think it was $45 to $50 billion annually in just the interest on our debt. So that's just to service the debt was around $50 billion. And that equated to, the stat that I saw was for families of four, that was $4,500, I think, per every family of four in Canada. So it's a lot that goes just to nothing, just to interest at the end of the day. So the infrastructure sounds great when the pitch is there and we all drive on the roads and see the construction and such. But at the end of the day, if we don't get a return on that investment, it does affect the debt continually.
Yeah. And so talk to me a little bit about that $45 to $50 billion. Like, where else do we spend that kind of money?
I saw, to try to put it in perspective, I was trying to figure out, where the federal government spends money in that. So the closest example I saw was the Canada Health Transfer. And what that is the money the federal government gives to the provinces and the territories to help with, your emergency care services, your doctor visits, and those types of things. So that was $50 billion as well. So we're spending as much just to service our debt as we are to provide health care to the entire country. So that's where you start looking at these numbers and you're going, okay, you hear these billions and billions of dollars and you hear that we're in debt, but trying to put it in perspective, and it's a big number to me when I think about that Canada Health Transfer in particular. I think the other one was the Canada Child Benefit is $25 billion a year is what they spend on that. So we're paying double than what we're giving to the kids and those families that need it every year. Wow. Now that you've been working here for a year, you have your movie list from me of must watches, and Dumb and Dumber is on that list. So while we're talking about debts and interest and payments and things like that, there is that funny line where every penny's been accounted for. Those are IOUs. You're going to want to hang on to those ones in Dumb and Dumber that I love. So.
What is this? Where's all the money? That's as good as money, sir. Those are IOUs. Go ahead and add it up. Every cent's accounted for. Look. See this? That's a car. $275,000. Might want to hang on to that one.
Is there a line where investment turns into reckless borrowing, I think is what we're saying here. As we finish all of our episodes here, we like to finish with some recommendations, what you're listening to and what you're watching.
So CJ, what are you listening to lately?
Me first, okay. I do love the Compound and Friends, which is a podcast. It's on a video podcast and obviously a audio podcast as well of U.S. financial planners down there, financial advisors. I think it's a little bit more aimed towards financial advisors, but they were chatting about recently, I think one of their children had finished school, gone to university to be a coder. And, 4 years ago, there was a high demand for people that knew how to code. And now with the dramatic, sharp rise of AI, AI can code better than most coders, as I understand it. I think those people are having a hard time finding jobs. So it got me thinking of conversations that we have with younger clients a lot. And as a parent, when you're talking to your kid about you're trying to choose a program, it's difficult because you think you're spending all this money. You want to choose something that is something you could do forever. But people change jobs, more than a handful of times, the average person, I would say. So you're probably not going to be in that field forever. So I always try to recommend that you do something more general, especially in that first, second year. And if it's a general business, then I like that idea as well. I think that's a reasonable idea because business is in everything. Whether you're going to finish your university degree and then become a HVAC specialist or an electrician, or whether you're going to start your own website, something like that, you need to know about business and that in life in general, no matter where you end up. So I think that's a good start. And then as you get older, your personality develops, you grow more. And the world changes so fast nowadays that there might be different demands for different jobs by the time you finish, as opposed to starting out as a criminology degree and then not using that ever or something like that, right? So I thought that was an interesting podcast I listened to recently.
Yeah, and actually really throws back to our last podcast where we talked about making sure that you're investing in transferable skills.
That is very true.
Yeah.
Very good point by you.
Yeah.
And so what are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you recommending today?
Well, CJ, honestly, I jumped on the Blue Jays bandwagon this past month.
Okay.
And so I watched a lot of baseball lately.
Nice.
And it got me thinking to favorite sports memories. And so my mom was talking to me about how the last time that the Blue Jays were in the World Series, how we all stayed up to watch it. And frankly, I don't remember that. But I do remember the first time that the Canadian women's hockey team played at the Olympics and how my dad woke me up early in the morning to watch that back in '98. And that's just a wonderful memory for me. Do you have a sports memory?
I do. Yeah, I would say, definitely going to my first hockey game with my dad at Maple Leaf Gardens, and then going down to hockey games with my dad a few times over the years. As a young kid, the rink is so big, and the lights and the music and the players right there. And we had the opportunity one year to kind of go down to the parking lot after and meet with some of the players and Don Cherry and Ty Domi and Curtis Joseph and get a few signatures and stuff like that. So, and we were there with the hockey team as well. So that was a pretty cool experience that I definitely remember. And now being able to do it with my girls has been super fun as well.
That's awesome. That's it.
Until next time.
Until next time.
That's it for us. If you're not growing, you're dying. Keep that in mind.
I will.
Okay, awesome. It is financial literacy this month. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but I should not say that.
You didn't know that? Okay. What, you want me to give him the patented point? No shot. I'm not giving the patented point. No, I can't do it.
A few moments later.
Flotomo Wealth, greater certainty and epic action today. There you go. Some details are coming out today, and we'll get the official one tomorrow, I believe.
Yes.
Wow. Great financial insights.